share with you how I healed my depression and anxiety in a very short period of time. This is a real message of hope because I had anxiety and depression for 20 years, from the age of 12 until I was about 32. And honestly, I thought I was stuck like that forever. I thought 20 years of being stuck in really negative patterns of behaviour that had been ingrained into my brain all that time. I literally thought I'd damaged my brain. Then one day, after hitting a real rock bottom in my life, that was the moment that I woke up and I was determined to get better. And I am honestly shocked how quickly I got better once I started channeling my energy in a positive direction. I'm here to tell you today there is no permanent version of you, and things can change dramatically in a short period of time once you know how. A little bit of a background on my journey with depression and anxiety. I'd know if you want to know the full details on my journey with depression, I did a video last week about everything I experienced with this illness. I go into detail about all my rock bottoms and I'm super honest and vulnerable in that video, so you can check that video out if you click at the top of the screen. From the age of 12, things started going really wrong for me. That's when my depression started, and I lost all my teenage years and all my 20s to this disease, which is really sad when I think about it. I spent so much time just paralyzed with this disease, just not doing anything, to be honest. I can remember being at home for months, just in my room, staring in the mirror, wanting to change my physical appearance. That was one of the things that I was obsessed about when I was depressed. I thought changing my physical appearance would make me happy. Along the way in my journey, I developed various disorders that were all focused on hurting myself and causing myself harm. So I got a skin picking disorder, I got an eating disorder, I abused alcohol, I endured relationships with narcissists. All these various things happened to me. I was like a magnet for negative and toxic things. One key thing that I'll point out throughout those 20 years that I had depression, I never looked internally. I was always looking to the external to fix me. I never looked inwards. To be honest, I was completely disconnected from myself. I was disconnected from my body, my soul. I just had zero interest in getting to know myself and serving my own needs. Then when I hit 30, I experienced my ultimate rock bottom. I was in a relationship with a narcissist, and yet that came to a really bad ending. I ended up finding messages on his phone to a prostitute, and in that moment I just crumbled. I said to myself, I cannot take any more pain and suffering. My life is a car crash, it's a nightmare. Things have got to change. They've got to change now, and I think it's me that needs to change. That was the first time in my life where I'd really looked in the mirror and realised that I was the issue, I was the problem, and I needed to change. And from that moment at 30 years old, I've been on a mission to turn things around in my life, and things have turned around really quickly, especially over the last few months where I've got super serious about my healing. I'm shocked how quickly things have turned around for me. Oops, sorry guys, I forgot my microphone. So let's get into it. How to heal your depression. From my experience with this illness, I have identified there are certain key things that you must focus on in your healing. Our mind is a tool and it can be really helpful. But if your mind is poisoned with anxiety and depression, your mind, if you let it, can literally destroy your life. One thing I've realised, if you're depressed, you have a lot of negative thoughts, and you are allowing those thoughts to play out every single day over and over like a broken record. It is absolutely relentless, and here is where the problem lies. I know when I was depressed, I was either beating myself up for the past, things that had gone wrong, thinking that I was a loser, that my life was passing me by, I was stagnating, and literally I just felt like my life was over and this was me doomed forever. So I used to spend my time ruminating about this, and then I'd also think towards the future and I'd be worried about the future, thinking, what is my future going to look like? Everything keeps going wrong for me. It just seemed really dark, really bleak and hopeless. And this is the case for many people who are depressed. They're thinking about the past, feeling down about the past, or they're thinking towards the future and feeling absolutely hopeless. This is where the problem lies. By doing this, constantly thinking about the past and future, you are never in the present moment. You are constantly distracting yourself from the present moment, which is your actual life playing out now before your eyes. You are never enjoying this moment. You are constantly living in your head. Remember, and this is so important, your thoughts lead to your behaviors. What you think every day influences the way that you behave. It will influence the actions that you take, how you interact with other people, how you perceive yourself, and this creates your current reality. When I was depressed, when I was anxious, my thoughts were fearful, my thoughts were hopeless, and consequently, my behaviors and my actions, I didn't really take any action. I was just stagnant. I was just at a standstill. I was playing really small. My depression and anxiety literally ruled my life and kept me trapped. So guys, the aim of our strategy is to get to the stage where you are having less thoughts. Less thoughts or no thoughts equals complete presence, clarity and peace, and being connected to the present moment. You're no longer having thoughts about the past, you're not worrying about the future, so you're totally connected to this present moment. Depression and anxiety cannot live in the present moment. The second thing we're going to focus on is ensuring that the thoughts you do have are more positive. There's less negative thoughts dominating your mind. And the third thing to focus on is not ruminating, catastrophizing and spiraling. So when a negative thought comes up, we are the observer. We see that thought come up, we acknowledge its presence, but we know that it will pass. We know that everything is temporary, and like the clouds in the sky, those negative thoughts will come and go. We don't instantly latch onto it, believe it to be true, and catastrophize over it. So how can we achieve these goals? How can we ensure that we're having less thoughts in general, the thoughts that we have are more positive, and we're not ruminating and catastrophizing on any negative thoughts? How can we achieve that? So the number one thing that I've realized along my journey trying to heal my depression and anxiety, I have tried numerous things, and I've realized the key profound thing is to calm the body, using certain practices to promote peace within the body, because once the body is calm, it has a profound influence on calming the mind. And once the mind senses that the body is calm, you will have less thoughts, you'll have less negative thoughts, and you won't be impulsively triggered to catastrophize on any negative thoughts that do come up. Calming the body will allow you to move into the role of the observer. So when negative thoughts do come up, you are in control. You observe positive thoughts coming into your mind, negative thoughts coming into your mind, but you don't automatically react to any of those thoughts. You are no longer at the mercy of your mind. Through being the observer, we recognize the tricks of our mind. When you're depressed, your mind is lying to you. It's telling you things, negative things that are completely untrue. And when we calm the body, that fearful voice of doom that tells us, no one wants you, there's no hope for you, you're not pretty enough, you're not clever enough, nothing works out for you. That voice, once you calm the body, that voice is no longer the dominant voice in your head. Those negative thoughts become less and less frequent. If you let it, depression, anxiety, that doomful, fearful voice in your head, that dark voice will literally take over your life. It will rule your life and pull you from pillar to post like a rag doll. And it is so deceitful. That voice can convince you that you've no hope, and it can literally get to the stage where it convinces you that there's no point you being here. And this is when we see people taking their own lives. So although calming the body is the number one thing that you must concentrate on when healing your depression, there are other important things as well that I'm going to discuss now that I did on my journey to healing. So the first thing that I did, which was the catalyst to my healing journey, was that I went to therapy. I tried therapy twice in my life. I tried it at uni, I went for one session and I gave up, But this time, after what happened with my narcissistic ex and the breakup, I decided to go back to therapy, and I stuck it out for about 8 to 9 sessions. And through doing that therapy, I had some major epiphanies about myself and about my life and why I was in the situation that I was. I'm going to do a video on these epiphanies and go into more detail, but the general gist of things was that I caused myself a lot of pain and suffering, and in that moment I realised within these hands I have the power to completely destroy my life or create the life of my dreams. But what I will say is, even though I had those epiphanies, then it was up to me to do that work. Your therapist can't do that work for you. And at that point, at the age of 30, I didn't really know where to turn when it came to starting this healing journey. So after that therapy, things still were going wrong for me. I was still attracting toxic guys that weren't really that into me. I had another major incident with my skin picking, so things still weren't really going in the right direction. Then a few years later in 2023, I started journaling, and journaling was one of my first breakthroughs because it allowed me to rewrite the negative narrative that was still playing in my head daily. So when I did my journaling, I'd express gratitude, I'd write affirmations, I'd write about things that I wanted to happen in the future as if I was already living that life. And also if I had any worries going on in my head, I'd literally hash it down on a piece of paper and try and work through it logically. Initially doing the journaling, it did make me feel better. Like I stuck to it consistently for a month. And after that month, I could definitely see a change in myself when it came to my thoughts. I had less negative thoughts. I wasn't catastrophizing on my thoughts as much. I was feeling more hopeful for the future. But what I found was it wasn't enough. I didn't keep it up consistently. On reflection, journaling didn't calm my body enough to have a strong enough impact on calming my mind. I still didn't have that level of peace and clarity that I needed. However, what I will say is that journaling is an amazing tool, and I still use it daily within my healing routine. But I knew I couldn't rely on it on its own and that I needed something else. So in February 2024, this is when I had one of my major breakthroughs. I just got to the point where I felt a bit better. I'd been doing my journaling. It made me feel a bit more positive, but I still felt like anxiety and depression was holding me back. And I believed there was a better way that I could be living than this. And I wanted to thrive more in life. So in February of last year, I went to a spa for my boyfriend's birthday, and we did a session in the sauna and cold water. And that gave me such a buzz. It gave me such a positive feeling. It made me feel incredible. And for someone who on a day-to-day basis didn't feel that great, that really sparked something in me. And I was like, this feels really good. I want to feel more of this. So that was on the Saturday that we went to the spa, and then the next day me and my boyfriend did this breathwork and cold water class, and that experience changed my life. Literally, when we were doing the breathwork, we were led down doing this breath work, and I had such an intense emotional reaction to it. I felt like I could have just burst out crying and had an emotional breakdown. And in that moment, I recognized there was something coming out of me, and I realized that I had a lot of pain stored down, and these practices of doing the breath work and cold water, they were releasing that energy, they were releasing that pain, and I knew that I needed to do more of this. So after that weekend in February, I realised that I needed to commit on a more regular basis to my healing. So I started doing my journaling nearly every day again, and then I started going to the sauna and cold water about once or twice a month. But again, this wasn't much exposure to these practices, but it was a start. Then in October of 2024, last year, that is when I got really serious about wanting to feel better. And I committed myself to a winter mental health challenge, because basically I recognised from the previous years, when it came to autumn and winter in the UK with the dark mornings and dark nights, and it's raining and it's cold for months and months on end, I recognised that my mental health always plummeted during this time, and I was determined not to let that happen. I didn't want to wish away 6 months of my life every year. So I did a bit of experimenting with the practices at the start of this challenge, but I ended up creating a solid routine. And that routine looks like one to 2 minute cold shower a day, one A5 page of journaling, 20 to 30 minutes of meditation, and 10 minutes of breath work. All in all, this routine, it takes me about 35 minutes a day, which is not much out of my day. I feel like everyone can commit to that. If you think of the time you spend scrolling on your phone, you must at least spend an hour scrolling on your phone. So instead of doing that, I said to myself, Gabrielle, you can commit to this. Like, this is a feasible amount of time. Like, there's no excuses for not doing this. I documented my journey on Instagram. I'll put my Instagram at the bottom of the screen. And doing that challenge has been a game changer for me. In the last 3 months, I have seen the most transformative change in my mental health. And the two things that I think have been most significant within that change are the breath work and the meditation, because they have calmed my body to another level. I have consistently put in the work with this routine. I even did this routine on Christmas Day and when I've been on holiday. Literally, there was no excuses. And what I've realized through the research that I've done is that your body is constantly sending signals to your mind. So when we're feeling depressed and anxious, we might have pains in our stomach. We might have sweaty palms. We might have butterflies and feel nervousness in our belly, tension in our shoulders. Our mind is picking up on all these things. And when your mind picks up on these negative signals from your body, this sends a signal to your mind that something's not right, you're not safe. And this is how we end up in a constant state of fight or flight. And then ultimately, once you've been in that state for a long period of time, chronically, this leads to the shutdown stage, and this leads to the depressed feelings of feeling absolutely hopeless, really lethargic and unmotivated, not being able to get out of bed, not being able to face the world. Calming my body and subsequently my mind and having less negative thoughts has had such positive impacts on all areas of my life. So number one, I no longer have insomnia, and better sleep equals better cognitive function the next day. And this means that I'm making better, more logical decisions that serve my future self. And I'm demonstrating less destructive, impulsive behavior. Number two, my self-love has increased dramatically. And this has allowed me to find, for the first time in my life, a healthy, loving relationship. And it's also healed my relationship with my body, and I'm no longer causing harm to my body. Number three, I'm actually feeling optimistic for the future. I'm not feeling doomed and hopeless. And I finally found my purpose after 35 years, which is to help others who are suffering with their mental health. And now I've got big dreams and goals for the future. I literally never used to have dreams and goals, never. Number four, it's allowed me to connect with my mind, body and soul on another level. I have got to know myself on such a deep level, and I'm now highly in tune with my intuition. I trust myself, and I have this bond with myself where I know no matter what, I have always got my own back and I can depend on myself for everything. And this is all based on a growing acceptance of accepting who I am as a person and liking who I am. And number five, I am back in the driving seat of my life and my mind. I am no longer at the mercy of my depressed and anxious mind. And now it's quite rare that I have negative thoughts. Yeah, every day isn't a bed of roses. Not every day I feel like I'm thriving. But overall, I just feel so much more grateful for every single day that I'm alive. Okay, so the key thing to making this strategy work when it comes to calming your body is to stop the habit of distracting yourself and break that addiction to dopamine hits. Maybe you've listened to this video and you're thinking, but Gabrielle, these practices sound boring and I can't even sit with myself for 2 minutes without being on my phone and distracting myself. How am I going to meditate for 20 minutes? And literally, this was me for years. I came across the practices of breathwork and meditation and journaling years ago when literally I was going through the trenches of my anxiety and depression. And I turned my nose up at these practices, or I just did them for like 1 day, 1 week. And then I said, oh no, they're not working. They don't work for me. All I can say is you've just got to start Start today, start small, take small steps in the right direction. And like I said, if you keep this up consistently, you will be shocked how quickly things turn around. I used to think that I was completely stuck. I was absolutely hopeless about my situation, and I'd sort of accepted that me being negative and my life not going the way that I planned, that was just how my life was going to be. I was just a negative person. It was in my personality. But this is so untrue. Even the science proves that you can turn things around. Any ingrained habits, you can change them. This is based on a concept called neuroplasticity. And this is basically a fancy term that describes your brain's ability to adapt and change. If you practice a new thing enough times, your brain will create new neural pathways and it will rewire itself. Initially, when I started doing these practices, I felt a bit of resistance. But once you break through that and you start feeling the positive benefits of doing these practices and actually feeling good, that feeling is addictive. And now, instead of being addicted to destroying myself, which is what I was in the past, I'm now addicted to feeling good. Other key things that I've implemented that have really helped resolve my anxiety and depression: I have given up alcohol. Yes, last year on holiday, I maybe had 1 to 2 drinks, but for the most part, 95% of the year, I am no longer drinking. As we all know, alcohol is a depressant. If you're depressed, you should not be drinking alcohol. I know it's easier said than done, because when you're depressed, when you're anxious, alcohol can provide that escapism that you need. And I used to do that too. Literally, I'd get to the end of the week and I'd want to get absolutely obliterated to distract me from my pain. But the consequences afterwards, literally, it made me feel even more depressed and anxious. And I strongly believe if you are depressed and anxious, you should not be drinking alcohol, or you need to keep it to very minimal amounts. I recognised that I had a super toxic relationship with alcohol, and that was one of the ways that I used to cause myself harm. So alcohol had to go. It took me a few months to give it up, but hand on heart, I have never looked back, and I do not miss alcohol at all. I do not miss feeling rough. Literally, I have not been rough since July 2023, and I never want to feel rough again in my life. Another thing that I've given up, or that I keep to an absolute minimum, is caffeine. Again, especially if you're anxious, stop drinking coffee. Lay off the Red Bulls and Monster. These things, alcohol and caffeine, if you've got anxiety and depression, they are not conducive to you feeling better. They are just going to make you feel worse and exacerbate your symptoms. Like I said, the key focus here, if you've got depression and anxiety, is on calming yourself, calming your body, calming your nervous system, and calming your mind. Another super important point that I want to make, and it might be a bit controversial, but exercise and healthy eating did not help cure my depression in any way. I have always ate healthy and I've always exercised regularly throughout my life. And what I would find is I'd go to the gym after work, it would give me a bit of an endorphin boost, but literally the moment I left the gym, my depression would hit me again like a brick wall. And no matter how healthy I ate, or how much I stuck to my exercise routine, these things just could not cure my depression. And I think that's because I held on to a lot of pain and trauma within my body. So the exercise and healthy eating was not able to dig out this pain and trauma and bring it to the surface. I had to adopt more spiritual practices. So the breathwork, cold water, meditation, those things really brought that pain that was bubbling below to the surface. But what I will say is, if you are suffering with anxiety and depression, please exercise and eat healthy. I'm not saying don't do those things. Definitely do those things because they keep you on the right track. If you're depressed and anxious, you're eating junk food, you're not doing exercise, we're going to feel 10 times worse. So yeah, even though exercise and healthy eating didn't cure my depression, it definitely elevated my symptoms. So when it comes to medication, I tried antidepressants when I was at university, and honestly, they made me feel terrible. My anxiety went to newfound levels when I went on that medication. I was on them for 2 weeks and I felt that bad and that debilitated by my anxiety. I could not carry those tablets on, and I have never been on tablets since for depression or anxiety. I have taken the odd diazepam or beta blocker when I felt really anxious, but for the most part, I have never relied on medication to cure my anxiety and depression. To be honest, I think with medication, I think if you're at crisis point, I think medication can be really useful. But for the most part, there are so many people in my life that I know who are on antidepressants and they're still miserable and they're still stuck in these toxic cycles of behaviour, and their life just isn't going in the right direction that they want it to. Issue with medication is that it doesn't dig out your pain and trauma. With medication, it just elevates your symptoms slightly. And then usually the people on these tablets, they don't feel any need to face their pain and trauma. And that pain and trauma continues to bubble below the surface. It causes you issues, it keeps you trapped, and you're never set free from your pain and trauma. I'm going to conclude this video soon, but before I do, here are my top 6 pieces of advice that you must adhere to when healing your depression. Number 1, you must take accountability for your healing. No one is coming to save you, and time alone will not heal you. I spent so many years thinking, in time, in the next few years, I'll grow out of this depression. But no, that didn't happen. I also used to think, oh, when I get in a relationship, that will make me happy. No, that didn't make me happy either. I know when you're really feeling down with depression, having that responsibility to pull yourself out of that depression can feel really daunting and overwhelming. But if you look at that in a different way, it's also really exciting because you have the power within your hands to literally turn around your life. So in 2025, make it the year that you invest in yourself and that you work on Project You. All that energy you've put into feeling miserable, wasting time, stagnating, start channeling that energy in a positive direction and investing in yourself. Number 2, and this is super important, you must give these practices a fair amount of time to start seeing the positive benefits that they bring. Don't turn around to me in 2 days, 2 weeks and tell me that meditation doesn't work for you. My advice is that you need to be doing these practices daily, every single day, solidly for a month. After a month, then come back to me and tell me that meditation or breathwork doesn't work to you. But until you've committed to it every single day for a month, I don't want to hear that it doesn't work. Number 3, your healing journey is not linear. It's not just going to go up and up and up. With me, for example, I've still had low points along the way. Last year in November, I actually had a bit of an incident with my skin picking disorder again. But we don't let the times when we fail bring us back down. These are opportunities for growth and learning, and we pick ourselves up and we carry on. My 4th piece of advice is to question everything about yourself. Question your thoughts, question your behaviors, question the actions that you take, and ask yourself why. Why do you act like this? Why do you believe these things to be true? And where have these thoughts and behaviours come from? Most things that we act out as adults, especially when it comes to trauma and pain, it stems from our childhood. So you really need to look inwards and start focusing on that inner child. How is that inner child feeling? Are they feeling ignored? Are they feeling neglected? Are they feeling scared? Number 5 is to stop chasing dopamine hits and to stop looking for the answers externally. You have got to learn to be able to sit with yourself with no distractions and learn to love slow releasing dopamine activities. These can include things like yoga, meditation, reading, breathwork, sauna, cold water therapy. All of these things, they don't give you an instant high. They are slow releasing dopamine. You have got to adapt your brain to that form of dopamine. So my advice here is to start small. Start with 1 minute of meditation, then build it up to 2 minutes, to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes. Start with 3 lines of journaling, then build it up to half a page, then build it up to a page. Start small, then once you start feeling the positive benefits of these practices, it will become addictive. The peace, happiness and clarity becomes absolutely addictive. And finally, you have got to learn to reframe your pain. Whatever's happened to you in the past, you have got to let that go. If you continue to ruminate on it, this will only serve to keep you stuck in a depressive state. Allowing your mind to hijack you like this and ruminate constantly about the past, your mind is literally stealing the present moment from you. For me personally, I lost all my teenage years and 20s to depression. For most of that time, I was miserable, lost, and hopeless. I could get really down about that, but I have had to come to terms with that and I've had to reframe it. And the way that I reframe it is I had to go through all that pain and suffering to know what I know now and to help others. So guys, I'm going to conclude this video. I hope you found that super helpful. I know when I was suffering with anxiety and depression, I didn't know where to turn to, and there wasn't the resources and the help that there is now. And I would have loved to have heard someone like myself speaking about their journey and things that have really worked for them. Things can change, guys. Things can get a lot better, but you must start now. Start today. Don't waste years of your life like I did. If you take anything away from this video, it is that calming your body and mind, that is the key. That is what you must focus on every single day to beat anxiety and depression. Okay guys, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.